podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
No brakes, no brakes, no fear, no fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
Welcome along, I'm Ian Brannan. Great to be back with you this week as we react to some big news on and off the track, as British Speedway as a whole rocked by the news that the Wolverhampton Wolves are facing closure at the end of this season.
I've been punched up many times in the 36 years I've been there, and I usually bounce back up, but this is going to take a few days.
More from Chris Van Straaten on the way shortly. Of course, this news comes a week after Peterborough confirmed that their future is in doubt and facing closure at the end of this season as well. We'll hear from British Speedway Promoters Limited's Vice Chairman, Damien Bates.
It's just a shame, an utter shame that two clubs like that have been forced out of their home.
More from Damien Bates to come very soon. We're also going to be asking the question, what happens next for the two sides? We'll be speaking to Dave Rowe and Ryan Guest, who have got involvement in both clubs respectively. On the track, another tricky night for Peterborough at the hands of the Bellevue Aces at the East of England Arena. More struggles at number one as their Guest failed to score and went down by a 20-point deficit. Meanwhile, a close-run thing at Leicester as the Leicester Lions took on the Ipswich Witches. 43-47 it ended on the night, with Emil Sayfutinov breaking the track record on his first ever ride around the Pidcock Motorcycles Arena. Well, more from that to come, and also reaction from a few of the other matches as well, and looking ahead to the upcoming fixtures over the course of the coming week. All on the way on No Brakes, No Fear.
No brakes, no fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
Welcome along to this week's episode then, and we'll get into the reaction to the more recent meetings in the second part of the podcast. But this week, I'm going to start with the big news about Wolverhampton Wolves and Wolves receiving notification that Speedway racing is going to cease at Monmore Green on October 31st this year. Entain Group, they're the company that own the stadium, have announced that the tenancy agreement will not be extended beyond the end of the season. Well, there's been plenty said already about this, not least from the BSPL, the British Speedway Promoters Limited, who said in their statement they're shocked and disappointed to hear the news of the potential closure of Wolverhampton Speedway at the end of this season. Monmore Green Club has been informed, as we heard, that their tenancy agreement is not going to be extended, and the sport came to Wolverhampton in 1928, pretty much when the sport was first invented. Rob Godfrey, chairman of British Speedway Promoters Limited, said, "We are all deeply shocked by the news, and I must stress this was as much of a surprise to us as it was to everyone else when we heard on Monday morning." There's lots to be said about this, but one thing's clear, that there are plenty of people ready to stand up and fight for the future of Wolves Speedway. Right now, let's hear from Chris Van Straaten, of course, the long-time promoter of Wolverhampton Wolves and pretty much a lifetime in Speedway as well. He's been speaking to BBC Radio WM about how his day went yesterday and how he heard the news and what next.
Of course, yes, I'm kind of knocked over, you know. I mean, those children's toys where you kind of bounce back up when you punch it, and I've been punched up many times in the 36 years I've been there. And I usually bounce back up. But this is going to take a few days, you know. I'm glad the news is now out in the open, because I've been carrying this news as a burden on my own since the 16th of March when I was told. Now it's out in the open, and there's been a lot of positive reaction, and we had the local MP on, and who knows what's around the corner. But I think, there's no possibility whatsoever of the owners of the stadium changing their minds. And of course, it's their right. I'm a tenant, and they've given me the statutory notice that this will be the final season.
So if we go back, Chris, because you've been, as I say, you've been holding on to this info for about a month. There was a meeting back in March then when you were told, because there was a story as well that you'd signed a deal, a 4-year contract was in the offing.
That's right. I've got that on my computer, began between their solicitor and myself, and I completed my side of it. And it was for 4 years. We've always run on a 3-year rolling contract, and the only thing it went out of sync was that year with COVID when we couldn't run. And then somehow it's kind of got moved into a 4-year deal, which I was delighted about, and was going to arrange publicity once it had been signed and all that, because it's a good move for the sport and for Wolverhampton Speedway. But that never happened, never came back. And when I was chasing it, I was invited to a meeting with representatives from Entain, with a parent company, which was cordial, very pleasant. They had their job to do, and was told that this would be the final year. It was like literally days away from my press day, and I thought it was the wrong time to announce it then. It would have taken all the stuff regarding the team, and then we had Sam Masters' benefit shortly after. Yeah. I didn't want to detract from them. So it was agreed that it would be done today, and there's no meeting at Monmore Green today, which is a relief, with all due respect to having to meet everybody and kind of, I'm in hiding today, if I'm being honest, so that everybody can reflect on it. I can reflect on it now. It's in the open and take 2 or 3 days to kind of get myself together. But I say there's been a lot of local support, which is nice, and I need to kind of digest all this and see what the future holds. Is there anywhere else that we could go? Is anybody sitting on 10 acres of land they don't know what to do with in the locality? I don't hold much hope, because I was part of the Cradle Heath Consortium, and of course I spent 9 years investigating different sites for the beloved heathens, and that came to nothing. So I don't have much hope, but if by any chance there's anybody listening in that has a pocket of land they don't know what to do with, then obviously we'd be delighted to hear from them.
I mean, it's a piece of Black Country Wolverhampton history, Speedway there. I mentioned you've been involved for not far off 40 years. When were the riders aware of what was happening, Chris? Well,
nobody was. Even my own family was not aware till kind of 6 a.m. this morning. I knew this was going out at 10 a.m. I wasn't brave enough to sit my children. Their whole life has been evolved around the Speedway for the years I've been there. And I wasn't brave enough to kind of sit them down. And so I took the coward's way out, and they had a message a few hours before the news broke. The same with the riders. They were told at the same time. So I've been carrying this secret. My wife knew almost immediately, because she could tell the way my mood had changed. But we've been carrying that secret now since the 16th of March, and it's a relief that it's out in the open, and now, people understand why I've been a bit short-fused with him over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's a piece of news that has been almost impossible for you to carry single-handedly over that time. What's been the reaction of the riders? Well, obviously
they didn't. Nobody expected it. The secret was, so kept so tightly, which I must thank Entain for as well, and I must stress that the local stadium people, it was such a shock to them as well. We've always had a tremendous relationship with the stadium and the staff, the management staff at Monmore Green Stadium, and I'm sure that will continue. It was a culture shock to them as well, and I want that relationship to continue. We're going to be there this year, and we're going to do everything to continue with a good show. And who knows? Somebody say, well, this actually, perhaps we can reconsider. I don't think they will, but we want to remain positive. We want to put on a good show. And wouldn't it be nice if it is our final season that we have some success in the final season? But
we've had a fair bit of feedback already, Chris, in terms of what's happening. People saying, it's not on, it's not right. But when you look at Speedway at the moment, Coventry, I think, still fighting to regain their track. Peterborough facing the prospect of losing theirs later this year. So that there are some concerns for Speedway fans generally as well now.
Indeed, it's a noisy sport. It's difficult sport to encompass into a residential area. We understand all that. So it's not the easiest place to find venues for. If you develop a new venue, which I've done at Redcar, you're right in the industrial heartland. So it's not easy to do that. I'm not a political animal, but I've always felt that there should be some support for sporting grounds, that there should be some kind of legislation that you can't develop sporting ground. And I was involved when Cradle Heath was first developed, and we tried to save that. But the value as a sporting ground compared to development is minuscule. There's no comparison. And I thought there should be some legislation that if you have a sporting ground of a certain acreage, for you to develop that, you either have to provide a similar acreage within a 10-mile radius or something. It's a tragedy that sporting grounds are being allowed to be developed. And I don't blame the people that own them, because you know, what offer you're going to take. You're going to take the highest. But I do firmly believe that there should be some legislation. And I was very interested that one of the first people make contact with me was Pat Fagan, the local MP. And obviously I will be having discussions with him when I've got my head straight in the next few days.
You said a few minutes ago you're not hopeful, but you never know. I mean, as Chris in Starbridge here said, come on, Chris, we've got to fight. We love Speedway. When Cradley closed, it was decertification. Yes,
I understand that, but when you're a tenant, you know, it's hard. But, you know, I did warn them when I sat down with these people. I said, I think you've underestimated the public response when this is announced. And they said, well, they've done their homework, they're prepared for that. So, you know, they will see all this public response, presumably, you know, and maybe there might be change of heart, but I have to be realistic. And, you know, I don't think so, because in my initial discussions with them, I tried to obviously obtain that, you know, but I couldn't move them. I don't hold much hope. So I think the more realistic side is that somewhere there we could develop where we are the main tenant, and the tracks that are surviving and are successful in this country is where they are the main tenant. Our closest track, once we go at the top level, will be Leicester, and they are very much the sole tenant of the stadium at Leicester, so they control what goes on. And I think we have to try and develop, if possible, more stadiums like that. But because of the price of land, you know, we have to have some kind of regulation to retain it as a sporting complex.
So there's Chris Van Straaten, the promoter of Wolves Speedway, and obviously it's been a very difficult few weeks for him by the sounds of it, and the news that Wolves' tenancy agreement with the stadium owners at Monmore is being cancelled, and Speedway therefore will end at the end of this season. And even more frustrating that they had a 4-year agreement in their hands, signed and returned, and then that was cancelled to be swapped for an eviction notice, in effect. Now, let's speak to Ryan Guest, who is no stranger to this podcast, of course, does loads and loads of interviews for us, and he's a well-known figure at a number of tracks where he's a centre green announcer, sometimes at Wolves, but also at Birmingham and Sheffield. But the area you grew up in, Ryan, your background is centred around Wolves. You know, family used to take you there. You used to go to a lot of the tracks in the West Midlands, I think, as you grew up, didn't you? But tell us about what Wolves means to you and where your memories of it go back to.
Yeah, I mean, I was born in Quarry Bank, which is literally 5 minutes from the old Dudley Wood Stadium. And up until the age of 3, I was taken every single week to watch the Heathens. Not that I can remember much at that age. And I know, like, there's still a photo which haunts me to today when I suddenly became the baby face of the Save Cradley Speedway campaign. But we all know what sadly happened next. And growing up, apart from having a picture of me as a toddler with Billy Hamill on his bike on my bedroom wall, I didn't really know what the sport was. But yeah, in 2004, when I was 12, my mum was going away, and my 2 elder brothers had started going to Speedway again. And I can remember them on the Monday night. They said they were going to take me along with them, and it was the Elite League playoff quarter final against the Oxford Silver Machine, as they were then. And Wolves eased past them on that one, and quite ironically, it was Hamill and Greg Hancock on the opposition side that night. And that meant my second ever meeting was that famous 2004 semi-final against Ipswich, where Michael Max beat Hans Andersen in the runoff to go through to the grand final. And from that moment, I was hooked. And ever since, Monday nights have always been about going to watch Speedway at Monmore Green. Now, not only was it a fantastic night out that I always got excited about during the day, whether it was when I was at school or going into college or whatever, but up until I started working in the sport, blimey, what was that, 9 years ago now, it was a chance to socialise with family and friends, and that was an added dimension to it all. And I know without even asking anyone that side of it is a big important part to what 99% of Speedway supporters in the UK, I guess, and that's socialising with family and friends, as I say. And it is a way of life, and to so many, their lives revolve around going to the Speedway on a Monday night or following the team away on a Thursday. And it's years of not only their own lives, but of relatives and generations of their families that have undoubtedly passed through the Monmore turnstiles over the past 95 years. And obviously having so much to do with Wolverhampton, as you've said, one of the oldest speedway clubs in the world, one of the most successful too, I think. And we should also add, in a city like Wolverhampton, they genuinely are probably the second biggest sporting club in the region. I'm almost certain of saying that. And it's, like I say, it's such a shame because it's years of heritage and tradition and culture that's just been ripped away from the lives of so many people, and also the heart of the city without any real warning almost. And I think the most shocking part of it all to everyone was the fact it was Wolves. Because with all due respect, some clubs announced they're going to be closing, and it's not entirely a surprise. You've kind of seen it coming for some time, and you often deep down known that the writing was on the wall perhaps. But with Wolves, certainly they've always been built on solid foundations with a good working relationship with the Ladbroke staff and management based at Monmore Green. I don't know, it's still really, really difficult to even comprehend a British Speedway season without Wolverhampton being involved.
It's a good point you make about the community aspect of it, because we talk about the demographic of the British Speedway fan, and it is older, but for many of those, they've gone their whole lives. Long-time friends are there. It's a key part of their social calendar, and there's that side of it that they'll lose as well. Let alone obviously the racing and everything else. But there is that social aspect for many people, and that's a huge part of the community, huge part of their lives.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of clubs out there who have disappeared at periods and then came back, but there's clubs going now which have skipped a generation almost. But Wolverhampton has been a constant in the city, in the community, and you look across the terraces at Monmore Green on a Monday night, and you can see the 3 or 4 different generations with kids and the parents and grandparents, and I know some families have also got the great grandparents who still go as well. And like you say, in a city like Wolverhampton, it just hits that bit harder because, like I say, it has been a constant. It does mean a lot to the people. I know the vast majority of Speedway fans are your typical working class people, right down to earth as well, who just go for the sake of the socialising and the sport, as we've said. And it's just, like I say, it's just a massive shame, and it's just come out of the blue, out of nowhere. And I know when Chris was speaking there as well, he said he's been sitting on the news for over a month, and I just think, how has he managed to keep such a big thing to himself? Particularly, he mentioned his own family as well. I mean, his 2 boys and the whole family. He's got his grandkids who love going in the replica race jackets on race night as well. And it's like I say, so soon after the news broke, it's still hard to comprehend, really.
And you're feeling like many Wolves fans will be, I would imagine, like many Speedway fans are, because Wolves have just always been there, pretty much, in one form or another. Certainly over the last 40 years, pretty much. What now then for the club with your press officer's hat on for Wolves? Chris Van Straaten seems fairly resigned that this is going to be the end, but is there a way forward, you hope? Because there's a lot of people starting to sign these petitions and some waves being made and MPs are getting in touch. What are you hoping in the short term?
I can totally understand why Chris doesn't hold high hopes. It's rare that these situations do take a U-turn when a group of people are so adamant on a decision in the first place. But Chris also did say that he thinks they have underestimated the reaction from the public. And as you've said, with the petition, the messages on social media, I'm sure that the people at the group are going to have received emails over the past 24, 48 hours as well, directly to express concerns. Who knows? The reaction in the public has been phenomenal. And I know Chris, he's gone into hiding for a few days, but even he will be blown away by the reaction that the news has got. You've got the local MP, Pat McFadden, who's always thrown his weight and support behind the Wolverhampton Wolves anyway. But also the leader of the council got involved straight away. And like you say, the publicity side is going to be absolutely huge. And look, everyone's got to respect the way that Chris wanted to go about it, how he kept it to himself for so long, how he arranged for it to be going out on a specific date, or at least agreed with them anyway with their press release. And like you say, look, at Wolverhampton, we are very fortunate. The Express and Star newspaper give the club some absolutely fantastic coverage, as do BBC Radio WM as well. So we've always had their support. And I mean, even the added coverage they've got over the past couple of days just with this news has been extraordinary, really. And it's quite sad that it either takes immense glory or an absolutely tragic story to get the likes of BBC Midlands Today or ITV Central involved. But they even covered it on Monday tea time as well. And like you say, if enough people kick up a fuss, then who knows, maybe it might just make them consider the decision. You never know.
So for anybody listening to this now, what can people do to help Wolves out at this moment in time?
Obviously, the online petitions, I know it's just putting your name down and signing something, but that's just the start of it. And I know already they've obviously got the Wolfpack support team. They've got so many supporters who have suddenly, for one reason or another, have disappeared away from the sport, who have now suddenly come back out and really want to fight and show these people what the Wolverhampton Wolves mean to people in that local community. So signing the petition is just the start of anything, but the more voices that are heard, and the more people who, we're not saying bombard the group, of course we're not, because that's not necessarily the right way to go about anything, but putting things out on social media and just, like I say, turning out in numbers maybe for the rest of the season as well, and showing them just how many people care about Speedway in Wolverhampton. That's just there's going to be so many ways, and look, it's going to be constantly going around in the media now, even surrounding the current meetings as well. And I'm sure next Monday at Monmore Green, when Leicester are in town, who knows? It could be the biggest crowd we've seen at Monmore Green for a long time, just based on the back of the news that came out earlier this week. If there is an upside, at least there's 6 months ahead here before the club closes down, which is a long time. You know, this announcement could have been made later, and they could have sat on it for a lot longer and less time to react. But a full 6 months, pretty much the whole season here, and an opportunity for people to show what Speedway means to them, and an opportunity to show the people in charge of the stadium that actually there is a demand for Speedway at Wolverhampton, which we know there is, but we need to show them. Yeah, 100%. And I mentioned the Wolfpack Speedway support team there as well. They were already well active behind the scenes anyway, in terms of trying to boost the profile of the club and look after the longevity and the future of the club as well. And I know this is slightly, more than slightly out of their hands, but nevertheless, I know they'll be ramping things up. And as I say, there's that many people who genuinely care about Wolverhampton Speedway. They'll be plotting things and planning things to get things in a process to, like I say, just show people that Wolverhampton Wolves is needed within the local community. And as you said, with so long to go as well, I know there were a lot of people on the outside, maybe even some on the inside, who had written Wolverhampton off in 2023, but they have made an absolutely fantastic start to this Premiership campaign. And the riders will have been determined to prove people wrong anyway. They were happy to be the underdog with the Wolves, excuse the pun. But nevertheless, who knows? This could make the riders even more determined, because without upsetting too many people here, there's not exactly a large amount of successful sports teams in Wolverhampton. I might be talking with a biased head on another front there, but like I say, probably behind Wolverhampton Wanderers Football Club, the second biggest sporting team in the region. And if they could somehow get success this year and show everyone, like I say, they've already got the council support, so that's one thing in their favour. But who knows, a successful campaign on track could go a big way to protecting the future as well. You never know. As Chris Van Straaten alluded to in his interview, and I think many people realise necessarily that Chris Van Straaten was one of the people involved with
Redcar moving to where they currently are and building the facility there, and he's involved in that promotion, obviously more in the background than he is at Wolves. But he has got experience of building a new track in a place that the Speedway Club is in charge of their own destiny, in an area where, there's another motocross track next door to Redcar. So it's a part of the town that's familiar with the sound of bikes. Ideal place to be, and he's been there, seen it and done that side of it as well.
I guess he's seen both sides of it, both sides of the coin, hasn't he? Obviously, he was involved with the Cradley Heathens project, obviously with of course, Nige and Gary Patchett, and I know Will Pottinger was involved there. And they, trust me, I know some Heathens fans are adamant they didn't try hard enough, but trust me, I used to hear the conversations. I was involved in bits behind the scenes, not as much as others, but they really did try, and trying to find the right land, obviously now, because it's a noisy sport, as Chris touched upon there, and I know he's got his say on the legislation side of things and all of that, but it's not easy. But the Cradley Heathens thing didn't work out because, as I've said, there's just so many reasons behind it, but he can also turn to the Redcar side where he has been successful. Maybe he can keep that hope. Obviously, Chris is now at a different stage of life. Is the best way of putting it. He has gone through so much, not only in Speedway terms, but on a personal level over the past decade or 2 decades as well. And at this stage of life, who knows? Look, he does live. He lives for the sport. His family lives for the sport, and I'm sure that will help keep pushing him on as well. But when I did manage to speak to him on Monday, I've never heard him so deflated. And there's been occasions along the way where things have happened out of the blue and casual postponements, which of course as a promoter cause you a lot of distress at the time. But genuinely, I'd never heard him so disheartened, and he almost felt embarrassed that he was at the centre of it, when realistically it's got nothing to do with him. I know, speaking to Chris, it's got to be 5 or 6 weeks ago now, the 4-year lease that he has touched upon. It always used to be this 3-year rolling contract. They offered him a 4th, and it was there, and we had got things in place to be announced almost imminently. And like I say, that was what 5-6 weeks ago or whatever it was now. So yes, when I didn't hear anything else off Chris in that time, I was suspicious. But look, these things happen. I've been in enough lease conversations with promoters and stadium owners in recent years to know that's just the way it goes sometimes. And yeah, like I say, a massive shock. But if anyone's got the experience to build on something, then surely it's Chris Van Straaten with not only his years in the sport, but everything he's seen, both good and bad, on the Cradley and Redcar side.
Okay, Ryan Guest, press officer at Wolves, among many other hats that you wear, and thanks very much for joining us. And we'll also hear from Ryan very soon, because he's done plenty of interviews for this podcast as well. Right now, we'll turn the spotlight on Peterborough Speedway, another club whose future is in doubt. Of course, we know about the Nicky Pedersen situation, but also in that statement was the news that their future also is in doubt at the end of this year. And as things stand at present, very sadly, this will be our last year, reads the statement. We have a contract with the showground until the end of October, and at this stage, it's highly unlikely that this will be renewed. We've spoken to several people regarding the potential for a new site, but the club would need significant help with that, as it would essentially involve building a new stadium. Our intention is to carry on fighting for as long as possible to keep Peterborough Speedway in Peterborough, but as it stands now, the Speedway will cease in October. That is the statement that the club put out. Let's hear from Dave Rowe, who can speak to us about Peterborough Speedway, and also, similar to Ryan, handles some of the press duties as far as Peterborough are concerned as well. And Dave, just give us a bit of background first of all, because there has been this threat looming over Peterborough for quite some time. What is the situation?
Yeah, well, everyone, Ian, is aware of the showground site. It's a massive site, and people have seen development move closer over the years. But the actual activity of the stadium has continued, and obviously still holds many major shows during the year. But that will end come this summer, and that's been planned for a while now. And the Speedway, towards the back end of last season, last September, managed to negotiate with the site owners successfully to secure one further year, i.e. 2023, to race at the showground. So whilst the showground will close for its major shows this July, the Speedway will continue until September, October time. That's the 1 year deal, and as far as we know, and certainly all the latest information is that will not be extended any further. Now there is it's gone in very, very recently, an outline planning application. There's been plenty in the Peterborough media in the last year or so about exactly what the owners intend to do with the site. The outline application has gone in the last couple of weeks. It is very different to what was initially mooted, but the fundamental part of it is it's been very much branded as a leisure-led development. Obviously, there is substantial housing attached to that as well, but this is a situation where the whole ethos of the site will change from what it was to obviously housing, but also other leisure facilities, and that gets the site owners around one of the key contentions of planning legislation, in that if you cease a facility, a speedway site as it currently is, a speedway stadium, then you need to provide, or one of the criteria you can get your planning through on is that you provide a facility that is deemed to exceed in value or community value what it's replaced, and that is why this is being very much branded as leisure-led. Developers tend to learn from their experiences elsewhere where things haven't worked, and that's why you'll see everything to do with Peterborough is being talked about, the leisure aspect being the main part of this development, when of course, being cynical, 1,500 houses or however many it is, you would suggest that is really the main drive towards this happening. But that's what the outline application does. There's an awful long way to go before an outline application becomes a full application and becomes passed. But of course, if the Speedway closes at the end of October, they've had their extra year of grace, if you like, from the site owners, and you could argue that a site that's currently sat still doing nothing for a year or 2 years or whatever, ultimately becomes easier to develop, because you can then bring some value back to it.
You're involved in the fight to save Coventry Speedway, so you have a bit of experience when it comes to speedway clubs and trying to get them back in business, either at their present home or another one. People will say, well, why not get some other land? Why can't we speak to the council and tell them to find us a new home if they're giving the planning permission away? What's your response to that idea? Because it's a simple fix in theory.
We've had those discussions over Coventry at times, although in the case of Coventry, the councils have been very reluctant to discuss anything regarding land whilst the existing stadium is still there. It almost becomes a circular argument in many ways. You mentioned the leisure situation, and it will be interesting to see exactly what the components are, but it will doubtless be driven towards what you would describe as community well-being, that sort of thing. As I say, the developers are learning, and with Coventry, they attempted to get round Coventry on the grounds of viability, failed completely. So then they shifted. There's three possible plans of attack. One is viability. One is to actually go and provide a new site for the sport that they're displacing, but they don't tend to do that. So they've gone on to number 3, which is the leisure. You mentioned the all-weather pitch they're planning at Coventry, which got thrown out by the council, and we're waiting to find out whether an appeal will come in on that. They've got to the middle of May to appeal. So the developers are learning what to do, and they're learning the kinds of things that may in the end get passed through. As for councils providing land, I know there is talk of land in the Peterborough area, not too far from the showground. That has been mooted. Certainly, I know there are people working hard at Peterborough to try and there's a group together formed to try and get something sorted. But obviously, the clock is ticking, because if you talk about acquiring some land, putting in an application, getting your permission, then building your stadium, which costs you money, even if it's a fairly basic stadium to start with. And we're talking here in April 23, needing to start in March 24 if you're not going to take time out. So very, very difficult from all angles.
So what now for Peterborough? What is the plan in the short term?
Hopefully we'll find out more in the next few weeks, as I say, when this if this group that they have got together, and there are some fairly influential people on that, can report back. But as things stand, the picture is fairly bleak unless they can somehow achieve something extra for next year. But I think if they were to be looking at a year by year extension as things stand, and I stress that looks unlikely as things stand, if they were to achieve something like that, there has to be some long term goal at the end of it, because clearly the showground, we felt probably 2 or 3 years ago it might have about 5 years of life remaining as its current venue. Well, that's been pulled back. That's been the development's been accelerated. That's quite clear, and you get the feeling it will probably happen at some stage. Although there will doubtless be a great deal of local unhappiness about the ideas that are being put forward, because they're basically proposing a new town in the area, and with all the requirements that's going to need for infrastructure. That's a battle that will be fought locally, but it doesn't bring the Speedway back if they've already closed it. So, really difficult situation, and somehow you have to crack that conundrum of the circular issue of saying, well, okay, the site is still here for now, but it's clearly looks like it stays a number Speedway-wise, so is there a way of compromising this situation and getting something else happening whilst it's still running as it is?
We've seen here, 2 cases this last fortnight of 2 clubs who don't own their own stadiums, who are not in charge of their destiny, and then getting basically turfed out by whoever decides, and that's their right. But does this raise further questions about any Speedway club that don't own their own stadium?
I think it does. We're seeing surprises, and clearly Wolverhampton was the biggest surprise of all, because if you're making a list of clubs that you would think wouldn't be under threat, then certainly Wolverhampton, albeit they are tenants of Monmore Green, you wouldn't have expected them to be on the list of under threat, let alone being told with about 6 months' notice that you won't go any further forward. So yes, it's something that has to be looked at, because obviously we don't want to lose tracks, as Rob Godfrey mentioned on Monday when he talked about Wolverhampton. That was obviously in response to the Wolverhampton news, but it was very much a situation looking at other tracks as well. The aim is to grow the sport, and we're going to see Workington back this year, which looks a tremendous facility. Great work being done there. There was some bad news over Eastbourne recently, but I know there's some other places where there is a bit more encouragement. So that's the plan, but. It's just the message, I think, from Wolverhampton has been, unfortunately, at the moment, if you're not in control of your destiny, then there's no guarantees.
Premier League greyhound racing is the main reason that Speedway is having to give way for more greyhounds. With the rise of this Premier League greyhound racing, obviously a lot of Speedway tracks are based at greyhound stadiums. Do we see this same threat coming to darken the doors of other Speedway clubs?
I think we'll find out more on that in the pretty near future. I think the one thing that frustrates me about Wolverhampton more than anything is that what they're proposing there, this new premium scheme, is not actually aimed at the local community at all. Obviously, if you're local community, you can go to greyhound if you enjoy it, night out, meal, bit of betting, whatever. But this is aimed at a completely separate market, many thousands of miles away. It's completely aimed at the betting market. So you can't say that what's being done there or proposed there is really benefiting the local community at all, which is a massive frustration. We've seen in the last few years the demise of Newcastle, who had stadium issues. Obviously, there were team issues too in the end last year, which probably exacerbated things. But we also saw Kent have to move out of Central Park. Kent, Newcastle, and indeed Birmingham, all owned by the same company. Birmingham, good to see, are continuing. There's been a lot of work there on a relationship with the stadium, which I think at the moment is fairly stable. But then, of course, you have news of other possibilities at Birmingham anyway, with maybe councils or others having alternative ideas for the stadium. Probably, I wouldn't say short term, I'd say more medium to long term on that. But as far as greyhound venues are concerned, clearly that industry is changing as well, and maybe that era of people going out for a meal at the greyhounds, maybe that is coming to an end at the moment, and people are looking to exploit different markets. And it still seems crazy to me that Wolverhampton Speedway, that would run once every fortnight or twice, 2 or 3 times a month, there wouldn't be space for them to run a maximum of 20 meetings per season out of a year of 365 days. They don't do any damage to the site. They pay all their bills. They run everything properly. I am absolutely astonished that even if you are rebranding Monmore Green Stadium for this premium greyhounds, that you couldn't have the scope to include Speedway as well, and that will be something that other clubs who are based at greyhound venues are going to have to be looking at.
And onto the effect that this has on British Speedway as a whole. Obviously, two major clubs, Wolves and Peterborough, but two clubs in the Premiership as well, which is already a fairly small league. What are the early indications as to what this may lead to as far as British Speedway as a whole is concerned?
I don't think anyone would agree or would feel that a Premiership with 5 clubs is remotely viable. It simply isn't going to happen. That's even before you talk about the TV deal. So if both of those clubs were to go and weren't rehomed and simply weren't competing next year, then undoubtedly there would have to be a look at some kind of a restructure, whether that involved other clubs coming up, or I've always been somewhat sceptical of the idea of one big league. It's been tried before, albeit there were more clubs in the mid-90s. There were 20 or 21 clubs at the time, and it never worked out. It was very difficult for clubs with different agendas, different strengths, to really marry up together. So I still think, if at all possible, a 2-tier structure is the way to go in terms of senior racing, and then whatever you do in development racing as well. I think that's going to have to be the way to go, but there'll have to be some serious thinking about, because as I say, you cannot credibly run a league of 5. 6 was the absolute minimum, and really that was 6 because of COVID at the time, and it didn't work out too badly, especially with the reduced fixture list and the travel issues and the late start in 21. That didn't work too badly, but everyone was so pleased in the Premiership to see Leicester come up this year and take it to 7. The fixture list in that league looks far more credible. We now have Mondays and Thursdays where there are 2 or 3 meetings taking place, lots of action, lots of good racing already, and to then see that knocked back to 5, you're going to have some more in that league, in the top league, even before you talk about the implications for the TV deal. So again, they're going to have to know by mid-season what is likely to happen with these two clubs whose future appears to be very much in doubt as to where we sit for 24.
And one or two people also asking if ground sharing, in effect, would work for any of these Speedway clubs, certainly in a short-term agreement for Wolves or for Peterborough. Is that something that may be a prospect at all?
I'm sceptical, simply because it's very rarely worked in the past. The only place it worked was Cradley at Wolverhampton running National League, but you look at the other examples, Coventry National League at Leicester, absolute disaster, as many people always thought it would be. Cradley at Stoke in the mid-90s didn't work out, and you look at the options. So if you take Peterborough and Wolverhampton as the two that we're really discussing, well, Wolverhampton, the only real option there is Birmingham locally, and Birmingham have issues over the number of meetings they can stage in one season anyway, so I don't think you could sustain 2 senior clubs, even if you could get round the issue of lack of attendance or whatever, or travel difficulties. So I think at the moment Birmingham are limited to 20 meetings per season, so you couldn't run 2 senior tracks there. That's a non-starter. And Peterborough, well, the options, I guess, are Kings Lynn, which is the same promotion, but again, it's Peterborough to Kings Lynn is 40 miles, but it's not the easiest of journeys, and you can't see Peterborough fans travelling that distance all the time. Leicester isn't a million miles away. Leicester's the facility that is open for business, or could be open for business, pretty much every day of the week. But again, is that viable? Are you going to get the crowds for the club racing outside their own town? And history suggests that's not the case.
Dave Rowe there, speaking to us on No Breaks, No Fear. We'll also hear more from Dave very soon, because he was at the East of England Arena as the Peterborough Panthers took on the Bellevue Aces on Monday. So reaction from that meeting to come, and also from Leicester, where the Leicester Lions took on the Ipswich Witches in the Premiership Knockout Cup. More on that to come. But as we get into part 2, we will hear from the Deputy Chairman of the BSPL, British Speedway Promoters Limited, Damien Bates, on the Wolves and Peterborough situations, and also Speedway as a whole. And some of the reasons that he is optimistic that some clubs are going to have a good year this year, whilst others, of course, are finding themselves in some trickier situations. Details with Damien Bates in the next part of No Breaks, No Fear.
No Breaks, No Fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
Into part 2 of No Breaks, No Fear this week. And if you are new to the podcast, well, welcome. Don't forget to like or subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any of the previous episodes. And if you have missed some previous episodes, you can go back and listen to them whenever you like. And whilst we are talking about individual meetings, there is usually a main guest in the episodes who hopefully brings you some entertainment, whether you're listening in the season now or whether you're listening to this long after the season's finished. You'd be surprised how many people listen to the old episodes through the winter. It's like thousands of people listen through the course of the closed season, listening to match reports of meetings that have long since gone. But hopefully people finding some valuable information from our guests that we have each week as well. And right now, let's hear from Damien Bates, who is the Deputy Chairman of the BSPL, British Speedway Promoters Limited, which is all of the promoters together, all of the clubs together, and of course Damien is involved with Leicester and with Sheffield, but of course looking at that news involving Wolves and Peterborough, and of course everybody at BSPL was as shocked as you were. Everybody read it about the same time as everyone else did when this news was announced about the closure of Wolves. Only Chris Van Straaten knew really in advance, and the news came out and it rocked the Speedway world. Here is Damien Bates speaking with Ryan Guest.
Firstly, Peterborough, we as a league and a group of all clubs, we always knew there was something on the horizon with Peterborough, but we never knew the full ins and outs of it. And it was just when obviously the broke the story with Nicky, obviously not wanting to return due to his personal reasons or whatever it is, and also about the future of Peterborough, which is it's a massive shame because you look at the Peterborough Stadium, the club, and I know Keith's worked extremely hard when he took it over and to keep the club going. I take my hat off to Keith. He never shies away from a challenge and taking Peterborough on at the time, invest a lot of money to keep it in the league. Like I said, I take my hat off to him. But the news that it's going, it's just a massive shame, and hopefully, I know there's murmurings of there's potentially could be some land. I don't know if it's just what I've heard on Grapevine. Hopefully they can find someone and they can get a new venue, because to lose Peterborough, massive loss that would be. And obviously then we've got news on Monday that with Wolverhampton, speechless really regarding that, because I think Wolverhampton's been going over 100 years. Chris and Pete Adams do such a great job at Wolverhampton, especially in difficult times, which we are at the moment. And it's just a shock. I don't know the ins and outs of everything. I'm sure stuff will come out the next few weeks of potentially what can happen, what's going to happen, if there's anywhere else they can go, or whatever Chris is thinking about. But it's just a shame, an utter shame that two clubs like that have been forced out of their home for so many years due to other reasons that that I don't think anybody will actually know what they are. But it's massive to lose two clubs of that stature.
Yeah, as vice chairman and obviously as a group of board of directors as well, though, you can obviously understand supporters generally across British Speedway their concerns when two clubs announce that in such a short space of time.
Yeah, it's a concern for supporters, other clubs, everybody involved in Speedway, because I said that they're two clubs that with a massive history. Two of the biggest clubs that there is in Speedway, and to lose them in such a short space of time is like unbelievable really. But we'll support both clubs as as a company and directors and everybody will pull together, and whatever we can do, if we can help them in any way, we will. There's no question about that whatsoever. I just really hope that we can find something for both clubs and try and get them on track, keep them on track. Only a couple of years ago we lost Swindon, which again, I know Terry and people at Swindon, they're trying to find somewhere and they keep looking. So hopefully Peterborough and Wolverhampton can do exactly the same.
Like you say, it's only natural to be concerned when such news breaks as well. But nevertheless, British Speedway, we've got some big name riders back in the Premiership this year. Other developments all the time as well. And even in these tough times, it's important to stay optimistic about the future.
Yeah, it's the Premiership. I'll speak about the Premiership. We've as a group we got Phil Morrison as CEO, which we all felt we needed some help, some direction, and Phil's professionalism. Phil brought in for his professionalism and the jobs that he has in FIM. It was a no-brainer to get him in, and the stuff he's doing already behind the scenes, I can see a massive difference. Which stuff will come apparent in due time, but there's stuff happening. He's doing a marvellous job already. Ipswich have got probably, I'd say, the biggest name speedway rider in the last 10 years to come to Britain, Emil, and he started off brilliantly, and you can see what a class act he is, and they retained Jason Doyle again, unbelievable rider, and you look at the teams coming through. I know Peterborough had that issue with Nicky, but to get Nicky to sign, to get him here, I know how much work goes into signing riders like that. I signed Nicky a couple of years ago at Sheffield, which obviously the season got cancelled. I've got Jack, a Grand Prix rider at Sheffield. There's also Max down at Leicester. These are top riders, and to have them in the league is really, really good, and everybody's working hard for it. And it's just a shame that this news over the last few days and weeks has just put a bit of a dampener on it all.
Yeah, just finally though, it's important, like I say, to remain optimistic and positive. And I know times are hard with obviously the cost of living and all things like that, but nevertheless, this really is a big season for supporters to get out there and support the local team as much as they can, and show the local authorities just how much Speedway means to local communities.
Yeah, you've just said there, cost of living is difficult for everybody in all walks of life. No matter, if you've got no money, you've got plenty of money, it's still difficult because it's everything's just increasing week on week, month on month, and Speedway fans come and they pay the earned money to clubs to support them, which I know myself personally, the appreciation is unbelievable, because I know how difficult it can be, and the clubs have tried responding, like I said, by signing some good big names, to justify people paying the money, because that's what we need to do. If people are spending the money, we need to help out and try and give the best for them to support the local teams, which it's massive that people do turn out and support the local teams, and hopefully Wolverhampton and Peterborough local councils, MPs, they'll see that, and hopefully they can step in and help their clubs in them situations.
Damien Bates, the Deputy Chairman of the British Speedway Promoters Limited, and Damien was speaking as his side, the Leicester Lions, were in action against the Ipswich Witches, and Emil Sayfutinov smashed the Leicester track record as Ipswich progressed to the Knockout Cup semi-finals with a 47-43 away win. Sayfutinov took half a second off the previous mark set by Nick Morris in his first ride, and then proceeded to score a 12-point maximum in his first appearance at the Pidcock Motorcycles Arena at Beaumont Park in Leicester. The Witches had domination of the race wins, taking the flag in all but 4 heats, with Jason Doyle adding 12+2 and skipper Danny King with 11. Doyle also combining with youngster Kenyon Rowe for a 5-1 in heat number 15. Richard Lawson top scored for the Leicester Lions with 10 plus 1 bonus point, including 2 race wins, as they exited the competition by a 10-point aggregate margin. Ipswich now facing Peterborough in the last 4. Well, let's hear now from some of those involved and the Ipswich co-promoter Chris Louis speaking with Ryan Guest after that overall win at the Leicester Lions.
Well, Chris Louis, a nice response first and foremost, obviously having been beaten by Bellevue at Foxhall last Thursday to come to a Leicester team who've obviously assembled a nice looking septet for this year, a nice response, as I say.
Yeah, very good, because as you say, losing at home to Bellevue was a bit of a blow, particularly in the league, but they're a good bunch. When we put it together, it's no secret we're a bit top heavy, but we said that the team, with the likes of Keenan and obviously missing Eric again for another meeting, we said we would take the first half of the season going to new tracks for a couple of the riders. Take a little while to get going, but really happy with this response. The heads were down, not massively to be fair, after the home defeat, but they were down and picked themselves up tonight, and a confidence boosting win obviously here and going through in the cup.
Yeah, as you say, top 3 superb again, contributing the majority of the points, and I know we're speaking loads about him already. Emil Seifertenoff, though, his first ever trip to Leicester and smashes the track record in his first race.
Yeah, he had studied it on YouTube. It seems to work. Yeah, that's the type of character he is. Richie said when they walked the track that he commented that track looked fun, looked good, looked well prepared, and he couldn't wait. And to go out and obviously break the track record in his very first race here was quite impressive.
Yeah, with the aggregate win in the bag ahead of Heat 15, it allowed Richie to put Keenan Rowe in as well in that one, and it had been a bit of a tough night. I know him and Danny got a bit too close for comfort in their first one. He had a big pile up in the original stage of Heat 14, but him and Doyley worked superbly in that last race, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, look, Keenan had a really rough night. Obviously, the race with Danny was unfortunate. He made a couple of mistakes himself. He was in the wrong place, wrong time, particularly in his C14 crash. Went down quite hard, and I really felt sorry for him. So, big call from Richie to put him in Heat 15, but it proved absolutely the right move. Not because we got the 5-1, but because it gave Keenan a good confidence boosting ride. I mean, he looked capable of doing that all night long. Like I said, it was just very small things.
Yeah, and now on to Thursday, back to Foxhall and Sheffield in town, and everyone was saying Sheffield and Ipswich probably the 2 pre-season favourites, so an interesting clash on Thursday night.
Yeah, I think latter part of the season I see us as one of the teams to beat. We did say early doors we didn't think that would be the case, and it proved against Bellevue last week. But yeah, I see Sheffield and Bellevue as 2 very, very competitive sides. So it's going to be another tough night for us, but obviously we'll take a little bit of heart away from this one.
I know we just heard from Damien Bates. We'll hear from him again soon, looking ahead to Sheffield's clash with Ipswich later this week. That's coming up soon. Right now, let's hear from Stuart Dixon, who was on the podcast just a couple of weeks ago. He said that he fancied Leicester would be competitive, and keeping things as close as they did against Ipswich must give them heart for the future and how things are going so far. Here's Stuart Dixon speaking with Ryan Guest.
Home defeat tonight and out to the Knockout Cup. How would you assess that one against Ipswich?
First of all, credit to Ipswich. I thought they rode very well. Any signs that Emil Seifertenoff would maybe take a couple of races to figure out the Leicester track were quickly blown away when he got the track record in heat number 4. We threw away a couple of points, but I think the better team went through to the next round. We send our congratulations to them. From our point of view, disappointing to lose at home, something that we've not been used to since I came here. But you can see the class of Jason Doyle, Emil Seifertenoff, and Danny King had a good night as well. And they were a wee bit sharper at the starts than us most of the evening. And finding that these big boys are hard to pass when they make the gate on the track. No complaints with the track wise. Track rode well, the riders were happy, I think, both sides. But just unfortunately we come up a little short, even on the night, just to get the home win.
Yeah, like you say, last Thursday against Peterborough in the opener as well. Obviously, track conditions. I know you were just happy to be able to get that one on in the end. So realistically, this was kind of the first team meeting on conditions how you ideally want them.
Yes, I think so. I don't think the riders were. Nobody said to us, "Oh, this needs change or that needs change." I think they realised we never had. We're not meant excuses. We never had a practice, a pressing practice day. The track last week was just it was more riding than it was racing. Whoever made the gate won the race. But we need to dust ourselves down and get ready for Bellevue. I believe they're winning handsomely at Peterborough right now as we speak. So another tough meeting. We knew it was going to be tough. We just need to collectively, all of us, including myself and that, we need to up our game and get ready for Bellevue on Thursday.
Yeah, and it must be nice to have a quick turnaround in home fixtures like that as well to bounce back.
I think when you lose, you're always eager, right, to try and get a match straight away. Bellevue's confidence will be up. I think that's now a couple of away wins in a row. They're beginning to find their form. And as I said, I know they've got a couple of riders that's no road this track before, but it never caused any problems for a couple of Ipswich riders who'd never seen the track before. So we, as a team, need to up our game if we're going to take something out of the fixture on Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah, and next up on Thursday, as mentioned there, the Bellevue Aces, the visitors to the Pidcock Motorcycles Arena at Beaumont Park in Leicester, the Ipswich Witches versus the Sheffield Tigers. Peterborough Panthers, of course, had a tricky night at the hands of the Bellevue Aces on Monday night, and it's been an extraordinary record, really, of success at Peterborough. A thumping 55-35 away win on Monday evening. The victory was the Aces' 8th in their last 9 visits to the East of England Arena. Also their second win on the road in the space of 5 days to boost their Premiership prospects after a tricky start, of course, to the year. Let's hear from Hans Anderson, first of all, of the Peterborough Panthers.
Very disappointing to not win home meetings, but again, you got to remember, Bellevue's come here on a high. They've just gone to Ipswich and won away there as well. And it's never been a secret they have riders who have a very big liking for this track.
I mean, what was the problem early on? Because it just seemed to be slow out the gates, and they were out-gating it.
Obviously, I don't know what was the problem early on, because if I knew, we would have sold it quicker. But you still got to remember, this is still only our second time on track this season, and some of us hasn't ridden a lot this season, so we're still trying various things and trying to get the right setup. People say, yeah, well, you rode this track before, yeah, but again, it's different.
Yeah, I mean, I sat there with Ulrich Ostergaard and we just asked him, coming out of Bend 2 early on, people were picking up drip and losing the drive.
Yeah, track at the moment, is very smooth and good, but it doesn't seem to create the lines which we was used to the track creating. But the track's the same for everyone, but it's always difficult when you're expecting something and it's not there.
I mean, do you expect now three away meetings coming up, but you've got to go to Bellevue on Monday, so that's going to be a real tough task, but you're confident that you can really put on a show there?
Yeah, without a doubt. We got riders who's pretty good around Bellevue as well, and like Niels was super fast there in the Peter Craven not long ago, so yeah, we do. We go there thinking we can win, otherwise there's no point of us going.
You must be pleased with your own form overall, especially at home, because a couple of good heat wins, good performances at the end.
Yeah, it's been all right. I would probably say I'm probably only at 60, maybe 70 knot at the moment, because I still haven't been on my bike a lot this season. I just need more track time, and people say, well, I haven't been able to practice because weather's just been dreadful everywhere. Every time I've gone places, it's been raining, and I've not been in a position where I could actually go to Australia and ride through the winter like some of these boys have.
Well, if you're only 70%, then we can really look forward, probably in 3 weeks' time when we're back here, you're up to 80, 90%, or perhaps even 100%.
Probably, I'm hoping 100%. Again, like I said, I just need track time. Because I've not been on a bike a lot this season, and I think it shows. I definitely don't feel like I'm riding the bike smooth enough. I should be smoother on the bike, but then again, time will tell. We just need more time on the bike, and again, I've got various of confidence in this team. We have a good team, and we just need more time on track.
How big a blow was it to lose Nicky Peterson?
It's a massive blow to lose a rider of Nicky's calibre. He's a lot. He can score. He's a point-scoring machine. Whether you like him or not, he's a point-scoring machine. And various of riders, they got a lot of respect. They might have even lost the race, just seen they were in the race with him.
Was it the right thing to do? Just after 2 bends, just to say I'm not riding anymore?
I can't really comment on it, but sometimes there's always 2 sides of a story, and sometimes you can't really tell the full truth.
So there's Hans Andersen speaking his point of view of things from the Peterborough Panthers camp. How about Mark Lemon? Things going pretty well for the Aces over the last week or so, and certainly going very well every time they visit the East of England Arena. It's a rich hunting ground for the Aces. Here's Mark Lemon with Dave Rowe.
Mark, well done. Obviously a track that you know and like very well. Your record here over the years shows it. What an impressive all-round performance.
Yeah, I mean, the boys have showed some real resolve after the early start of the season. Maybe it was a little bit of a championship hangover, but they've definitely found their groove at the moment. And, really solid performance by the whole group. We do like this track, similar track, I suppose, in the shape, but we came here and we hit them pretty hard. Obviously, Peterborough a little bit depleted, but we made the most of it.
Did you have words after last Monday? I didn't watch the meeting myself at Wolverhampton, but it wasn't a Bellevue performance looking at the scores, and then you hit back at Ipswich on Thursday.
No, pretty much told the boys just put a line under it. Wolverhampton. We know Wolverhampton can actually put in those results. They're a good team around the home track, and they were very good. We were very poor. We have to put your hands up sometimes and accept that. But we addressed the situation going down at Ipswich, and the boys responded as professionally and as capable as I know they can. So I wasn't worried because we've got a good team. When you got good riders, more than capable of, what they ride to their abilities, you're always going to sort of be there or thereabouts. But it's just a matter of just following the processes, and maybe we just got a little bit lost.
And when you've got a reserve like Jamin Lidsley, and again a track I'm sure he was looking forward to coming to, but 14 from 5 at reserve, that's a massive weapon to have. Yeah,
whenever you get a reserve firing, it always helps. But like I said, the whole team really pitched in today. We got young Jake down at the rising start position. I saw some real progress in his actually riding, not so much his points, but there's a long way to go. But everything looking promising at the moment.
Pretty weak away matches because you're at Leicester on Thursday as well, so another chance for away points, I guess.
Well, that's the idea of the game, is go and try and win as much as you can, pick up points on the road. Obviously, we lost home and away to Sheffield, which hurts. But I'd rather lose matches in March and April than in September, October.
OK, so a win for the Bellevue Aces on the road, and another side heading out on the road are the Sheffield Tigers, who visit Vauxhall Stadium. And as was mentioned by Chris Louis earlier on, Ipswich and Sheffield, two of the fancied sides for success come the reckoning later on this season, so they get their first chance to face off against each other. We've heard from him earlier talking about British Speedway as a whole. Let's hear from the co-promoter of the Sheffield Tigers, Damien Bates, speaking about Sheffield's prospects and their trip to Suffolk later this week.
Well, Sheffield co-promoter Damien Bates, after a bit of a break from action back at Vauxhall against Ipswich on Thursday. First of all, Tobias Musilak, obviously it was a nasty incident for him, but some good news on the operation front earlier this week.
Yeah, it's never nice when you hear that a rider's injured or broke anything, and I know Toby will be absolutely gutted that he has crashed his missing meetings for his clubs here in England and also probably Poland. So I'm glad the operation went successful. It's just a bit of recovery time now, so hopefully we should see him back in a week or two, fingers crossed.
Yeah, and certainly got a Vauxhall track specialist guesting on Thursday night.
Yeah, we've got Scotty in, myself and Steady. We looked at options, a few names we could look at, and Scott always, no matter when or who always rides for, Scott always seems to deliver, so it were a bit of a no-brainer really to get Scotty back to help us out.
Yeah, and obviously Ipswich had made a solid start to the season and then got beaten by Bellevue last time out at Vauxhall, so going to be a pretty open meeting, it seems.
Yeah, they obviously lost to Bellevue, and obviously that'll be probably a bit of a shock to them, because it was a great result for Bellevue. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. Fair play to Bellevue, but Leicester run Ipswich close the week before or the meeting before, so yeah, I think Ipswich are beatable, but also when they've got the riders have got in with Jason and Emil in their team, you can never predict anything, because they are two class acts, and we'll just go there with every intention of doing his best, and hopefully we can get a win.
Yep, and it might be very early doors, but nevertheless, early signs. Got to be happy as promoter of Sheffield with the performances so far.
Yeah, I am, to be fair. I've built team this year. I wanted to keep the core of the team with Jack, Kyle, Adam and Toby. Louis coming at end of the year, and he was really good for us, so that was a bit of a no-brainer when Louis has to come back. And then obviously we've got David, which it's no secret, I've chased him for the last 3 or 4 years to try and ride for me, and he's agreed this year because I feel his average is a steal, and he's proving already that he's finding his feet again. He's pulling in some big performances for us, winning key races, and he's an all-round good guy to have in pits as well. So and I think the team's built from 1 to 7, and young Dan to reserve. He'd never rode Sheffield before. Did have a big crash on last Thursday. So he's got that out of the way. He knows how much it hurts when you crash at Sheffield, but I think that'll make him a stronger rider, and I'm more than happy with 1 to 7 I've got, and I think it's a match for anybody. It's 1 to 7, to be honest.
So there is Damien Bates, the co-promoter of the Sheffield Tigers. Sheffield on the road to Foxhall as the Ipswich Witches face Sheffield Thursday night, 7:30 the start time there at Foxhall, with Scott Nicholls, part of that great Ipswich 98 team, racing for the Sheffield Tigers in place of Tobias Musielak. And for Leicester, it's Leicester Lions hosting the Bellevue Aces Thursday night, also at 7:30. Then the next Premiership action, of course, will be on Monday, and it's Wolves versus Leicester, a Midlands derby. East Midlands versus West Midlands, 7:30 the start time at Monmore, and many people can turn out there to show the support for Wolves. Of course, that would certainly be making a statement. And it's the Bellevue Aces versus the Peterborough Panthers on Monday night as well at the National Speedway Stadium. That fixture will be live on BSN as well. So that's your Premiership action for the next week or so. In the next part of No Breaks, No Fear, we'll turn our attention to some action in the Championship. Of course, last weekend it was the Berwick Bandits hosting the Glasgow Tigers. It was a rampant win for Glasgow in the BSN series, and Berwick have got a busy weekend home and away against Edinburgh this coming weekend. And we'll also spotlight a little bit on Jack Thomas, get an update from him. Of course, suffered some bad injuries before the start of the season, which cost him his place with the Poole Pirates at this stage of the season, and also with Ipswich. And an update from Jack Thomas coming up in part 3 of No Breaks, No Fear.
No Breaks, No Fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
Welcome back to No Breaks, No Fear, the official podcast of British Speedway. Right now, let's get an update on Jack Thomas. Of course, a rider who was looking forward to a massive season, really, with both Ipswich and Poole. And he's been given a positive update on his recovery from a serious back injury and serious neck injuries that he sustained in a practice at Scunthorpe on the very eve of the season, and faced a nervous wait before discovering the full extent of the damage, which included 2 unstable vertebrae. Let's hear now from Jack Thomas himself for an update, speaking to Mike Boswell from Gen X Radio in Suffolk.
Jack, great to see you at the track here at Ipswich tonight. Just give us a rundown of how you're doing and the kind of latest on your situation.
I'm doing really good now. I'm starting to get about. Was given good news off Hull at my last checkup, saying that they're happy enough that my spinal brakes are all stable. Starting to make my way about and regain all my fitness I can, and then having another checkup on the 4th of May to see where we stand for the next one.
And I know the fans have all kind of rallied around. Has that been helpful to you?
Yeah, the fans and everyone's help with my GoFundMe page has been absolutely unreal. As without it, I would have been in a total muddle. When I tried to claim on my insurances, they were all kind of wiggled their ways out of it for reasons. So, really appreciate everyone's support, and the help has been unbelievable.
And just from this side, obviously you've just been in the Ipswich match tonight, just how frustrating is it to be the other side of the fence and wanting to participate potentially?
Yeah, I've been to both the matches at home now, and I'm totally gutted. It's a lot of prep and a lot of time over the winter getting ready for it, and I really wanted to make this season mine, but Yeah, it's just unfortunate, but I'll still be about as much as I can to support the boys until I can ride.
And of course this year was an important year because it was your last year really to be able to get one of the reserve spots, as it were.
Yeah, so Rising Stars, the 23 is the age cap, and sadly I'll be 24 this month, and would have been my last season to actually kind of push on as a Rising Star and try and get myself settled in the main body somewhere.
Well look, Jack, good luck. We'll keep an eye on you, and thanks so much.
Thank you.
Jack Thomas of the Ipswich Witches and the Poole Pirates there with Mike Boswell from Gen X Radio. Good to hear that he's heading in the right direction. It's going to be a long road to full recovery, of course, but he's going to get there sooner than later, all being well. Let's turn our attention then to the Cab Direct Championship and a quick roundup of everything that's been happening. First of all, the Glasgow Tigers. They look set to secure qualification for the BSN Series semi-finals after a thumping 51-38 win at Berwick on Saturday. Benjamin Basso scored an 18-point maximum for the Tigers, who had been on course for a home win over the Bandits before rain interrupted proceedings 24 hours earlier. We can hear now from Chris Harris and Klaus Vissing speaking to Greg Blair on BSN.
Surprising, really, that I was coming out the corners, my bike felt a bit flat, so it wasn't coming off the corner how I would like, and so we made a few changes, but sort of everything we did changed didn't work. But I felt good out there, I felt fast. It's just, disappointed dropping a couple of points, but that's just a race with me.
And the track, was it a lot different to what you were used to at Berwick last year?
Yeah, I think it was a lot heavier a bit last year, and the starts was a bit more grippier, but obviously their first meeting here, so if that's how they're going to run it, then obviously hopefully it works for them. But tonight it sort of played into our hands really, and the whole team rode well tonight, especially Ben. He's had a tough start to the season. It was good to see him bounce back and bag a few points.
Absolutely. And Klaus, you've had I'll just pop that down a little bit. It gets a little bit interference there. That's perfect. Thank you. Good night for yourself. Did you enjoy the meeting?
Yeah, it was a good meeting. I was struggling a bit out of the start, so I was probably had a hard time to start with, and managed to just make something in my last one. It's a shame with that one where I got excluded, but there you go.
The one that you did get excluded in, do you think that was the right decision?
When I look at it afterwards, I thought he was turning left at me as well, but I do know him really well, so obviously I was looking and hoping that he was going to catch it, and I took my arm up the straight, and if I carried on and didn't even look, I maybe been in it again, but there you go.
Yeah, that's it. It's just racing at the end of the day, and you can all shake hands and have a laugh about it afterwards. Exactly, yeah. But no, you've had both of us have had an absolute tremendous night, and it was great to see you going so well on a track that maybe wasn't as good as what it usually is.
Obviously, like Chris says, it's their first home meeting. It looks like they put a lot of material on it, and it's probably a little bit looser than they're expecting it to be. But by the end of it, it actually came out pretty well.
It's a big weekend this weekend in the Scottish group of the BSN series, with Glasgow already in command of things and Berwick and Edinburgh racing each other home and away in that Scottish section. Gary Flint is looking for a reaction from his side when they head to Armadale on Friday, with the return leg back at Shieldfield Park on Saturday. The Bandits were shocked, of course, to go down by 13 points at home to Glasgow, and an improvement required. Meanwhile, for Edinburgh, the boss Alex Harkis is wary of the threat provided by a wounded Berwick side when the teams meet this weekend. The Monarchs won their home opener against Glasgow, but lost out on the aggregate point at Ashfield, meaning that they need a major return when they take on the Bandits. Looking at the Poole Pirates then, Poole skipper Steve Worrell feels his side should be stronger than rivals Plymouth, where they need to prove it on the track though. The sides are set for several meetings in the early part of the season, and they are in the same BSN series group and face each other this Wednesday. Here is Steve Worrell.
If I look down the list of teams, that's probably the one that would worry me the most coming here. Richie, he used to ride for the Pirates. He knows his way around here. He's very good. Ben Barker, if the Ben Barker who is on his game, bikes are working well, he could come here and score a hatful as well. So you just take them guys, and there's some good riders there just straight away. But I feel like we do have the edge on it. If you line them up, they have the faults just like we do. But I feel like we've got the upper hand.
Scunthorpe Scorpions, meanwhile, have started the season without key reserve Zane Kennedy, who was injured in Australia on the eve of the campaign. But promoter Rob Godfrey still hopeful that Kennedy could still be seen in Scorpions colours this season. Rob Godfrey said it's a massive, massive blow to lose Zane. There's no denying that. And trying to come up with an adequate replacement at this stage has been almost impossible. Elsewhere, Birmingham finally get their season up and running when they host Scunthorpe in the BSN Series at Perry Bar on Wednesday, with the return fixture set for the Eddie Wright Raceway 48 hours later. The third team in the Northern Group, Redcar, are inactive until April 26th as their home match against the Brummies was postponed last weekend. Meanwhile, Oxford make a second attempt to host a Swindon select on Wednesday, having been frustrated by the weather last month before they face Edinburgh in the Knockout Cup next week. Well, looking at the fixtures coming up then over the course of the next 7 days in the Cab Direct Championship, we have the action at Poole Stadium, Wimborne Road, the Poole Pirates versus the Plymouth Gladiators in the BSN Series. We've also got that challenge match as well at Oxford Cheetahs versus the Swindon Robins at 7:30. And then BSN Series action continues at Perry Bar, Birmingham versus the Scunthorpe Scorpions, as we mentioned just before. And then they have the return on Friday. Also that day, the Edinburgh Monarchs take on the Berwick Bandits at Armadale, and then it's the return leg just 24 hours later back at Shieldfield Park on Saturday. A 7 o'clock tapes up there. And that really rounds things up pretty much for the Championship, except for the following Tuesday, the Plymouth Gladiators hosting the Poole Pirates in the Championship Knockout Cup quarter-finals. Those two sides are going to be meeting quite a lot over the course of the next few weeks as things get going in the Cab Direct Championship. And your live action, which will all be on BSN over the course of this next week. We've got Poole Pirates versus Plymouth Gladiators on Wednesday. Friday, it will be the Edinburgh Monarchs versus the Berwick Bandits. And then from the Premiership, it's the Bellevue Aces versus the Peterborough Panthers on BSN. The Eurosport action gets underway on the 22nd of May. By the way, that's the date for your diary. 22nd of May, it'll be Leicester versus Sheffield, the first fixture on Eurosport, incidentally, when things get going in May. And then the idea is it's going to be 3 weeks on, 1 week off, as Eurosport still have to accommodate some other sporting action as well. But once Eurosport get going, they should be pretty regular on a Monday. And that rounds up the Championship side of things. Let's just cast our eye to the National League briefly, because there was some action over the course of the last weekend, and Mildenhall through to the Knockout Cup final for a second season running after an emphatic aggregate win over Kent. Alfie Botel, Lee Complin and Ben Trigger were all unbeaten by an opponent in a 60-29 victory at West Rowe on Sunday. Let's hear it from the team boss Jason Gardiner, and then after that we'll hear from Alfie Botel.
So Mike Boswell from Gen X Radio Suffolk talking with Jason Gardiner. Jason, your take on the match, and you're through to the next round of the Knockout Cup.
Yeah, we're through to the actual grand final now, which is really pleasing. Kent obviously had a bit of bad luck. We know how they feel. We used to have a lot of that last year, but all our teams stuck in. They attacked the track, did their job, and very pleased with the whole team performance.
And just midway through, I saw you bring the team together. What sort of things were you trying to get out of the team and trying to give the direction?
Just making sure they're all happy, passing on little bits of track knowledge to each other, and just carrying on, cheering them up, reminding them they're doing a good job, and just to finish a job off sort of thing.
And sort of, as we look forward to the next one here at home, Berwick, what's your thoughts on that team, and how the team are doing in all honesty as well?
Really pleased with how we've settled in. We've had 3 solid meetings as a team, a great bunch of riders in terms of team spirit, and a lot of them are riding really well, but some of them were only going to get better as well. So Berwick in 2 weeks' time is strong opposition. They've got Connor Coles, who rides this track really well. And they've also got Danny Phillips and Greg Blair, who both like this track as well. So Berwick will be strong opposition, but the way our boys are riding with confidence, no reason why we can't finish it up with another win again.
And sort of just looking down the team, we do look down at Alfie Purcell, Ben Trigger had a good night, say Lee Complin. When you've got those kind of fine, it must make it a little bit easier on the team management side.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, a lot better than last year. And when you've got riders like Botel and Complin who are going to go out and get 5 1s, takes the pressure off, and you can give the reserves all their rides, and they can go out and just enjoy themselves, and whatever they get is a bonus.
Enjoying my time here at Mildenhall, and all the boys are firing, so we're happy days.
And just to start off with, track looked a bit tricky, was it, or was it just a little bit of rough bends, as it were?
Yeah, no, track was definitely a bit hairy, but you just sort of had to ride with your head a bit and sort of know how to ride them conditions. Obviously, it catches everyone out, even myself, but you just got to attack it, I suppose.
And looking, obviously, you're doing National League and you're doing Championship. What's the difference between the two?
It's a big jump up. It's all about the elbows on the first corners. So you've got to be aggressive in that league. So no, it helps, definitely.
And how are you feeling your season started? I know we're just at the start of it, but I'm seeing good scores here.
Yeah, no, definitely happy with how it started. I'm happy how it's going. So just want to keep on being consistent and see how we go throughout the year.
And just as we go on, you're riding against Lee. How are you finding that as such? Good pairing so far by the looks of it.
Yeah, definitely. Me and Lee, we both get on and off the track, so we've got respect for each other. So you just got obviously Lee's a big guy, an aggressive guy, so you just got to hold your own and enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? So it's just enjoying it.
And there's Alfie Botel speaking with Mike Boswell from Gen X Radio. Before that, Jason Gardner, the team manager of the Mildenhall Fen Tigers, after they bagged their place in the Knockout Cup final in the National League for the second successive season. Elsewhere in the National Development League, the Berwick Bullets should have two of their injured riders back for their next NDL fixture. Winter signing Archie Freeman faces a longer recovery period. He suffered a broken leg just 18 seconds into his Bullets debut at Bellevue on Good Friday, unavoidably collected by teammate Connor Coles after losing power off the fourth bend. Gary Flint says obviously Archie faces a long recovery period. Mason Watson, Josh Embleton should be back on board by the time the Bullets visit Mildenhall at the end of the month. And the Edinburgh Monarchs Academy made a strong start to their home NDL campaign, a 50-40 win over the Bellevue Colts, with their heat leaders in fine form. Adam Roynan scoring a 12-point maximum, Kyle Bickley dropping just 1 point, and Jacob Hook also in double figures against the Colts. Elsewhere, a special mention for Workington youngster Luke Harrison, who faces a layoff for a while after crashing in an amateur meeting on Sunday. He was set to make his full-time NDL debut this season with the Comets. He's receiving treatment for 2 broken vertebrae, broken shoulder and bruising to the lung. So best wishes to Luke Harrison. It was just a freak accident that happened there in what was basically a practice session in an amateur meeting on Sunday, and not the way that he would be hoping his season would go. So best wishes to Luke Harrison. OK, looking at the fixtures then, as we've already mentioned, BSN Series, Birmingham v Scunthorpe, Poole versus Plymouth on Wednesday, April 19th, Oxford versus Swindon in that select side, again at 7:30 in that challenge match on Wednesday. Thursday, April 20th, Premiership action. It's Ipswich versus Sheffield, 7:30, Leicester versus Bellevue at 7:30. Friday, BSN Series in the Cab Direct Championship, Edinburgh versus Berwick at 7:30. That fixture will be live on BSN. Scunthorpe versus Birmingham at 7:30. That will be streamed by Scunthorpe's own live streaming on their website. Saturday, more BSN Series action with the Berwick Bandits hosting the Edinburgh Monarchs in the return leg, 7 o'clock at Shieldfield Park. And then on Monday, back to Premiership action as the Bellevue Colts take on the Peterborough Panthers. That fixture live on BSN. Wolverhampton versus Leicester. And in the Knockout Cup, it's Kings Lynn versus Sheffield in the second leg of that tie. And then on Tuesday, BSN Series comes to the Coliseum. It's the Plymouth Gladiators versus the Poole Pirates at 7 o'clock, and that covers your next week ahead. Thanks for joining us. Of course, keep up to date with everything happening across British Speedway on social media. Just check out the official British Speedway social media channels for all the news that you need first, any changes, but hopefully we're looking forward to a week of decent weather. Fingers crossed, and lots of Speedway to get involved with, and hopefully you can make it down there in person, especially if you're in the area of Wolves. Of course, get yourself down to Monmore and show people that there is a big demand for Speedway in the area, and it's about more than just the racing as well, because it's as was mentioned, it's a huge part of the community too in that part of the world. Thanks for joining us. My thanks to Dave Rowe and to Ryan Guest, as always, for their contributions. Also to Mike Boswell, to anybody else who have missed off. But thanks to you most of all for listening. We'll be back next Wednesday for the next episode of No Breaks, No Fear.
No Breaks, No Fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Between aging and busy lifestyles, many women struggle with maintaining their physical and mental wellness. At Aquavita Concierge Healthcare Services for Women, we can help you revitalize your health and reclaim your life. We start from within by balancing your hormones, allowing your body to achieve and maintain desired weight goals. We also specialize in peptide therapies, regenerative medicine, sexual health, and aesthetics in our state-of-the-art facilities. Feel better, look better, live better at Aquavita. Visit aquavitality.com and begin your journey today.